I'm Tracy Lawrence. We're Honky Tonkin, and I am so honored to have my friend Mr. T. Graham Brown in the studio. Good to see you, brother. Little road weary.
Little road weary, but I love you, Tracy. And
I'm
just
man.
thankful that you're having me, man. The show's great, and you're nationwide, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
good.
it's
Congratulations.
it's been good, man. We've been doing this thing for over 8 years, and it's been an amazing thing. I've really had a good time with it. It's good to kind of stay in with all the older music. I mean, I have such a great appreciation for the artists and the music from the 80s and 90s, man. I'm a fan first and foremost,
Yeah,
even of a lot of my peers during the 90s when we were all having hits. I'm just a fan, man. We had John Conley on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
Let's get to
man.
sit with John and
John Conley. I was listening to his Live at Billy Bob's CD last night, actually.
Yeah.
We were in New Mexico, and we had John Conley blasting.
Man, he still sings so good. He just got that soul, man. There's just nobody like him. Nobody's ever sounded like John.
I was sitting next to a guy, and it was that old thing. He didn't really know about John Conley, and he says, "Now is he Earl Thomas Conley's brother?" and I said, "No, but there's a thing in country music. There's a guy named Con Hunley, and it's always Earl Thomas Conley, John Conley, and Con Hunley. They get them all mixed up."
Now, you were in the mix with all that stuff. You were having hits in the 80s, man, when all those guys were out there just killing it, man. What was it like back then?
Man, I have had a wonderful career. I never was the biggest star in the world. I had a pretty good run at radio, but I came along at just a beautiful time, man. I got to work with all my heroes and tour with them, and they actually liked me, and I got to hang, and I'd call them the one-name people, Willie and Waylon and Merle and George and Tammy and Kenny and Dolly and Loretta and Conway, all those people, man, I got to hang out with them, and it was just beautiful, and I don't think that'll ever be repeated, that classic era like that.
No, and pretty much, Willie's, God bless him, Willie's 90 years old and still out there touring this year, but most of them are gone.
Yeah,
there's not a lot left.
A lot of them are gone. I posted a thing on our Facebook page, and it's a picture that somebody took at Woodland Sound in, I guess it was 1990, and we're all singing on "I Don't Need Your Rocking Chair." And George Jones is in the middle of the picture, and there's Joe Diffie and Mark Chestnut, and then George, and then Tritt, and then Clint Black's chin sticking in there, and then me. And I can remember that day like it was yesterday.
Wait. I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt here. Are you saying, because we were going to play this song and we're going to talk about this, but you're saying y'all were all in the same room at the same time?
Yeah.
Because they don't do it that way anymore. Like,
No,
people do duets, and they don't even, just two people, they don't even show up at the same time.
Yeah, we were all there, man. Look it up on T. Graham Brown Facebook. I'll plug that too. T. Graham Brown
Right, all
Facebook
right.
and all our social media. We're on everything. But yeah, and I don't know where that picture came from.
Well, yeah, there's no, I don't think that was on the video at the time or anything
No,
like
but I'm
that.
sure they had a photographer in
I'm
there.
sure
Oh
they
yeah,
did.
It looks like a pro
Yeah,
picture.
absolutely.
I
I think we should play that right now. I do.
I don't
Yeah.
need your rocking chair.
There's no reason to wait. I love George, man. That was right. I was just getting in town, and I got on that Red Man Crown Royal tour with George when all that stuff, he was having all that big resurgence, and it was just such a great time. And I got to tour with George, man. He was I was such a fan.
I know. Well, who is it? I put in there, it was George's birthday's coming up, and I was doing a show. Somehow I was just starting out, man. I guess I tell it like it used to be, might have been going up the charts, or
Yeah.
it was like early on. And we were playing at this place in Cincinnati called the Cincinnati Gardens. It was a big old cavernous place, and it was me and George.
Yeah.
And I never met him before. I was scared to death of him.
You didn't want to walk beside him without covering yourself.
And I'm telling you, and I got a word on the bus, George wants to meet you. And I was scared stiff. So I went over to his bus, and he was still drinking at the time. And I remember he had 2 bottles of bourbon in the sink, But he was so complimentary of me and said, look, I want you to come over to my place on Monday, and I'm going to take you to lunch. So I went over, and do you remember Pee Wee?
Oh, absolutely.
So you
Yeah.
remember Pee Wee had a after-hours club over there on Centennial or something. I don't know if he's gotten rid of it by the time y'all were.
I don't
But it
remember
was an
that.
all-night. It was open all night when it wasn't supposed to be,
And that was where George would hide out at?
And so George said, you know where Pee Wee's is? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, well, I'm living in the parking lot behind Pee Wee's. And I pulled up, and him and Nancy were living in a double-wide trailer.
Really?
And
Wow.
he had a new silver Lincoln parked out there. And I remember having kind of culture shock-ish, seeing that double-wide. And so I went in through the sliding doors and sat down, and then he comes out, and we get in that Lincoln, and he's driving me to lunch to a meat and three place, a meat and three vegetables.
Probably Sweats or something.
But I had never been to this. And I remember, man, he was driving, and he had that perfect hair and those perfect sideburns. And I was sitting over there in the passenger seat, and I was cutting my eyes over, just to get a glimpse of him, but I didn't want him to catch me looking at him, and I was cutting my eyes over there, boy, seeing those sideburns and thinking, man, I'm in the car with George Jones. It was really fun that day.
Wow. You don't realize, he damaged his career a lot during that period of time with the no-shows and all the stuff that was going on. And when I knew him, I never saw George take a drink. By the time I got to work with him in the early 90s, he was, for the most part, on the wagon. He had stopped all that. So he was just a sweet old grandpa to me, but to see the resurgence that he had, I noticed, too, that one of the things that fascinated with me, and I think about this often, that whole era of guys, Haggard and Jones and Willie and Waylon, all of them, they were used to being on the radio all through the 70s and 80s, and all of a sudden this new batch of kids come out in the 90s, and radio stopped playing them. Mm-hmm. The only one of them that, and I don't know if it was Nancy that navigated through that or who really did that, but the way George embraced us younger artists, nobody else really did that, and he had a huge resurgence in his career in the 90s that nobody else had.
He did have a huge resurgence. I don't drink anymore, but George and I drank together.
Really?
Oh, yeah, we sure did. And, hey, man, one night, Don King, the fight promoter, came to Nashville, and he was putting on a world championship heavyweight fight at the Bridgestone Arena, but it was called something else back then. And this has been 20 years ago or something. It's been a long time ago. And so we all went out to kind of celebrate the night before the fight. George was going to sing the national anthem at the fight, but he kind of was chickening out, so he went in the studio and recorded it and lip-synced it when it was finally time to do it. But we all went out there, man. We were going bar hopping, and this is a great lineup. It was Tanya Tucker and George Jones and Furlan Husky and Don King and me. And so we wound up somewhere, I can't remember where, and I asked Don King, I said, hey, Don, and I just had met him that night, I said, hey, Don, can I have one of your hairs? and he said, what? And I said, yeah, do you mind? Can I have one of your hairs? So he said, well, I reckon, and he thought it was crazy. But I reached up there and I jerked up, but I missed. And I said, Don, I'm sorry, man, I missed. Can I try again? He said, yeah, you can try again. So I tried again. I missed again. So I asked him for one more time. I was kind of begging. I said, man, can I please try one more time? And he said, look, Brown, if you don't get one this time, this is it. So I grabbed like 5 or 6 of them and just jerked them up. And he went, oh, put his hand up on his head. And I took those Don King hairs home, and I wrapped them up in tinfoil, and I put them in a baggie, and I wrote Don King's hair on it with a Sharpie and stuck it in my chest of drawers. I still got it.
No kidding.
Wow.
So I can clone him. I got his DNA. So
I got to tell you, we've done a lot of interviews. That may be the craziest story I've heard yet.
Well,
That's up there.
That was a fun night, but that was when that was.
If that's where it started, can you
that's where
imagine
it
where it
started.
ended?
Yeah.
But we were all still drinking at that
Oh,
time.
I can't even imagine. I got a chance to meet Don King a couple of times too. He's always really cool, but I didn't see him around the boxing world. I mean, he was.
You
hanging
didn't
out
take
at
any of
my-
his hair?
I didn't get any of his hair. I didn't think to ask for it. I didn't know that was a
you
thing.
know, my thing was like, my attitude was like, why not?
Yeah.
That's what he's famous for. Is his hair. I
Absolutely.
want a souvenir. But
Just take a break right here, Tracy.
I think we better just take a break after that. I think we need to get an appraisal on that, though. Number one, all the way back in 1990. That's Garth Brooks. Tomorrow Never Comes. In the studio with my friend Mr. T. Graham Brown, we are Honky Tonkin. So Keith, man, you know, I'm a huge Keith Whitley fan. I grew up, he passed away the year before I came to town. And I was just such a huge fan. He influenced me tremendously. You got to tour with him, man.
man, I got some great pictures. Keith and I were like brothers, man. We were drinking buddies. That was back when we were all still partying.
Oh, yeah.
And it was wonderful, man. I got a picture. It was in the picture. It's Marty Stewart and Keith Whitley and Randy Travis and me and Billy Burnett. If you remember him.
I remember Billy.
And we were all nominated for the best new male vocalist by the Academy of Country Music. And we were all lined up, and we got a couple of great pictures of us. And Keith had a cigarette in his hand. He always had a cigarette in his hand, man. But he was a wonderful guy. And we were on tour together, and we had come into town to rest up for a couple of days, and then we were going to head right back out. And Lori, we got in, and then Lori left that day. I can't remember where she went. She had a show to do. But anyway, Keith was left by himself. And, you know, he died of alcohol poisoning that night. Well, his manager is passed away now. His name was Jack McFadden. Yep. And we were all buddies. So it was nothing to get a phone call or call them. So I was at the house, man, and the phone rang, and it was Jack McFadden, you know, Keith's manager, and he said, "Hey, T," I said, "Hey, Jack, what's up?" And he said, "Keith's dead." Ooh. And I went, "No, that ain't even funny, man. Don't make jokes like that." And he says, "No, we found him dead." And he started crying, and I started crying, and he said, "You know, I can't face these cameras. Can I send them over to your house?" Oh. So I said, "Well, I reckon." And so all these news trucks and people came to our house, man. I wasn't in no shape to see them either, you know, but it was a bad day. It was really a bad day. And for anybody that wonders, Keith Whitley was a great guy. I mean,
that's all I've heard. Man.
He was a sweetheart, great guy. I never heard him say anything bad about anybody. He was just a good guy.
And right there on the preface of being a mega star.
Oh, man,
he was right
would
there at it.
He would have been as big as anybody ever.
Absolutely.
I
think
mean,
he would have. And so versatile and talented, a good musician, a good songwriter, just a great vocalist. I mean, he had the whole package, had it all.
He definitely had the whole package. But yeah, man, we were pals.
So what was your favorite Keith song?
Let's listen to "I'm No Stranger to the Rain."
That's
kind of fitting, you know,
Absolutely.
for Keith, his story.
Here's Keith Whitley, and "I'm No Stranger to the Rain." The Judge, Mama, He's Crazy, number one all the way back in 1984. In the studio with my friend T. Graham Brown, hearing all these great stories, man. God.
Well, I've been around. You know, man, I can't believe it. Next year will be 50 years I've been doing this for a living, and It's just amazing to me that I'm still alive, much less still at it.
You know, we've all had to slow down as we've gotten older. I mean, you just see, I think as you get to those certain places, you have to look at life through a different lens. And I just think that if you really step back and get a true perspective of it, we're all very blessed to have our little piece of what this thing is called fame. And to be around so many great, talented people, you know. When I came to Nashville, I felt like I was at home because all of a sudden I found all these people that were just like me, and I'd never known that before.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And you know, man, I'm not out. It's funny. I'm having more fun now. This might sound like a lie, but I'm having more fun now than I ever had when I was hitting, 'cause I'm not chasing a hit.
I ain't chasing nothing.
I ain't out there visiting radio stations and begging them to play my records. And the hard routine, being gone 300 days a year,
yeah.
when you're chasing a hit, man, and living and dying by the charts and all that. Now I got peace of mind, man. When I finally got right with God, and I got my Christianity back, and I'm doing good, man. Sheila and I've been together 43 years, and we're having a blast.
That's awesome, man. Well, and we go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
I don't drink as much. I still drink, but I don't drink as much. But I've got a whole different program in life. We just got our baby girl off to college. We're empty nesters
Awesome.
now, so we're moving into that new phase of life. And
Yeah.
we're enjoying
You'll
it.
like that, man.
I'm loving every moment. My wife's been spending more time with me on the road. And
Y'all pray for Tracy. His wife's going out on the road with him now. So he has
Well, hey.
it's a good thing, man.
I know, I'm just messing
Sheila's
with you.
been going on the road with me for the last probably 12, 15 years.
It's not a bad thing.
No, it ain't bad. And there's probably men out there that think we're lying about it. But no, man, Sheila's cool.
What's your daily routine out on the road? What do you normally do? You go to the golf course, you go to the gym, work out, you're a reader.
No,
What do you do?
I don't work out. Well, sometimes I'll play golf. Sometimes I'll go fishing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't do anything. I might go in the back of the bus and watch Wagon Train or Bonanza or Gunsmoke.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question for you.
Okay.
And all of your listeners, I don't know how you're going to answer it, but anyway, I'm going to ask it. You can play amongst yourselves. If you're riding down the road, this will be a game you can play. Okay, talking about Gunsmoke, here's the eternal question. Chester or Festus?
Festus.
Festus all the way,
All the
man.
way.
There's no doubt.
No.
All right, here's the eternal question on Bonanza. Hoss or Little Joe?
Little Joe.
No, you're wrong. It was Hoss.
It's Hoss in my
Hoss is
world.
so much cooler than
Now,
Little
well,
But
Joe.
Little Joe got all the girls.
Yeah, he got all the girls. And Little Joe was left-handed, and he was a quick draw. But
But
Hoss,
he always got beat up. Hoss didn't get whooped up on much. He's a big old boy.
and Hoss was just so lovable, He was squeezable.
I was a big boy. I related to Hoss. I was, I was like, I could be like that. All right.
Joe was always getting into trouble. Little Joe always got himself into some mischief.
Hey, all the
Chasing
time.
a girl.
All right. I don't know how we got on Gunsmoke and Bonanza, but tell me about. I tell it like it used to be. What did it feel different? You'd had a bunch of stuff out. You've been
Well,
playing
I was
music for
I was
years.
singing demos when I first moved to town, and I sang a ton of them. And I was over at Tree Publishing one day, and Bucky Jones and Ron Hellard and Mike Garvin brought this song to the demo session, and it was "I Tell It Like It Used to Be." So I sang the demo on it, and then they put it on. They tried to get it cut, and they couldn't do any good with it. And they put it on a shelf. And 2 years later, I had signed with Capitol, and we were looking for songs, and we thought of "I Tell It Like It Used to Be." It was just dumb luck that we picked it, that it was still there, So we went over to Woodland Studio, the same place we cut "I Don't Need Your Rocking Chair." We cut "I Tell It Like It Used to Be" over there. And I remember I was asked to leave that session. I think I might have been misbehaving a little bit that day. Sheila reminded me and said, they asked you to leave that day. But anyway, we cut it over there and put horns on it and all. So that it was the first single. And it was just all horns out and ready to go, kind of soulful. And they started playing it when, thank goodness, we had a hit on it.
Here's T. Graham Brown. I'll tell it like it used to be. Boys from Shenandoah, taking us all the way back to 1990. That's not true. One more time.
Yeah, right.
Okay, one more time. Boys from Shenandoah, taking us all the way back to 1990. Next to me in the studio, T. Graham Brown. Man, the shirts, man. Tell me, did your
Sheila
wife do
buys this all. Sheila lays my clothes out on the bed like
Really?
I'm in the third grade, man.
Dude,
She just, She tells me what to wear, and I don't argue with her.
But that's been your trademark for
Well, yeah, loud.
most of your career. Yeah.
Yeah, loud stuff. So
You're wearing a pretty good one today.
yeah,
That's a pretty good shirt.
loud stuff.
Looks like Barney got a hold of it.
Yeah.
That's pretty loud. I love it, man. You and John Daly, man.
Oh, John, I love
I
John
love
Daly.
John too, man.
I pray for John Daly every day. I don't miss a day.
He needs it.
Well, I pray for his health mainly, but I pray for him just in general.
He's a sweet, sweet man. Give you anything he had. Give you the clothes off his
Anything.
back, man.
Anything.
He really would. He's a sweet human being.
Anything, man.
Love him to death, man. So this freaking record, man, Hell at High Water. I remember I was probably, it was right before I went to college. I mean, it came out in the mid '80s. When did Hell at High Water come out? 84?
86.
86.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna
I
say
graduated in
probably
'86, so I remember working it up with my little old garage band that I had back then. I'm telling you what, man, it was just so different from anything on the radio. There's nobody else like it.
Well, I wrote that with Alex Harvey. Alex passed away a couple of years ago, but he's the guy that wrote Delta Dawn for Tanya, and he wrote a song called Reuben James that Kenny Rogers had a big hit on. He wrote a bunch of great songs, and we were writing for the same publishing company, and he invited me over to his house to write a song. And, most times, if anybody ever tells you, oh, we wrote that in 20 minutes, or we wrote that in 30 minutes, that's usually a lie, because it's hard to write a great song, period, much less in that short a time. But man, we wrote Hell and High Water, and this ain't no lie, in about 30 or 40 minutes. It just came.
Sometimes they fall out of the sky, man.
It just came pouring out. So I was so insecure in my writing ability at the time, I figured any song that had my name on it couldn't be good. That's the way my mind worked back then. And so we went in and we turned that song in, and they tried to get it cut for 2 years, I guess. I think we wrote it in '84. So, yeah, a year or so. Anyway, they couldn't get anybody to bite on it. So then Capitol heard it, and they said, we want you to cut Hell and High Water. And I said, man, I don't know. We can't get it in. This song isn't that good. Please don't make me cut it. And they said, no, we want you to cut it. So we went down to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, and finished that record. We cut, I tell it like it used to be in Nashville, but we finished the rest of the album in Muscle Shoals. So we cut it down there, and I still didn't believe in it. And Capitol said, we're going to put this one out. And I thought, man, this is going to kill my career before I get started. And they put it out, and dang if it wasn't a number one.
Big record, man.
And so I would have never guessed that in a million years. I really wouldn't have. But I'm glad they had the foresight to do it, because I sure didn't.
I am too. Here's T. Graham Brown and Hell at High Water. We are Honky Tonkin with my friend T. Graham Brown. Telling you, man, you're from Georgia.
Yep.
So that whole era when you were just getting started out, I mean, I was still playing. I mean, I played a lot of that Hank Jr. stuff. I played some of the Willie stuff. And you had John Conley in that mix, and you had Randy Travis that came out in the early 80s. There was a lot of transition going on right there. You had the outlaw movement in the late 70s. Then things started getting a little pop as you got into the 80s with Alabama and Kenny Rogers and all that stuff. And then there was Randy Travis. I mean, it was just there was such a great variety of just across the spectrum of country music. You had a little bit of everything. And you were very unique. You stuck out in all that, man. You had a real special slot there.
They didn't know what to do with me, man.
Yeah.
At first, they didn't know whether to put me out as a country artist or what. I was kind of a neither fish nor fowl, sort of, to speak. But they threw me out on country. They released all the stuff to country radio, and country radio played it. But I bet I could just as easily been something, another format. But I'm glad it went the way it went.
So you were a big David Allan Coe fan. That's pretty deep well there.
Man, well, I thought I was David Allan Coe, man. I'm telling you, I went through a phase of where I was just wild and woolly looking and long hair and a beard, and I got me a tattoo. I wanted to be David Allan Coe, I'm telling you. I saw a documentary of him on the public broadcasting system channel in Athens, Georgia, where I was living. And I just turned the TV on one day coming home from the University of Georgia, and I had on khakis and a 100% cotton starched button-down shirt. I was a preppy, man. I was a preppy, and I came home and I saw David Allen Coe, and I was just transfixed. I couldn't believe it. He's talking about killing people and parking his hearse out in front of the Ryman so the people that coming out of the Grand Ole Opry could see him. He had his name painted on the side of his hearse and all this. And I said, I want to be that guy. So I just dropped out of society basically and changed my whole look and my whole way of thinking. And that's when I bought a bunch of country records, and I bought David Allen Coe and Red Steagall and all the Merle stuff. But I had some of that Merle stuff and Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee Lewis, and just immersed myself in.
What was the name of your first band?
Well, the first band was called Rio Diamond.
Really?
It was because I saw it. I saw this album. It was on RCA, and it was Bud Brewer and the Brewmasters. Big Bertha, the truck driving queen, was the name of it. And this great big old fat woman was leaning up against this Diamond Rio truck, a big, tractor trailer truck. And it was a Diamond Rio. It was like REO Speedwagon, same company, but this was Diamond Rio. And so I flipped it. It's Rio Diamond, but it's REO, and then Diamond Rio came out and had RIO. So I don't know why they did the RIO, if they were going for the REO and just missed it or what. But anyway, it was T. Graham Brown and Rio Diamond. Then I did that for a while, and then I put together a soul band, a straight soul band, and called it T. Graham Brown's Rack of Spam.
That's what I was about to ask. I'm like, weren't you in a band called the Rack of Spam?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I came up with that name, but I do probably.
I'm sure there was alcohol involved.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And that was in 1979, and then we did that for 3 years and moved to Nashville in '82.
That was before cell phones, so I can't even begin to imagine the debauchery that was going on out there.
Oh, yeah. There was no cell phones. And then they finally came out with those big old white brick cell phones, that looked like a brick. You remember those things?
Oh, yeah.
And you could roam. They didn't have cell towers, many of them. And this little green light would come on and flash when you were roaming. It was $4 a minute.
Dude, let me tell you what I did. It was 95, 96. So I had a new bus built, and I had them wire in a house phone in it because you could get the bag phones and everything. So they had these modules and everything. You could hook it up. Well, I had that wired in my bus so I could have a cordless phone, just like a house phone. I could walk around in the bus with that cordless phone. I thought that was the coolest thing. I got the bill at the end of that year. My cell phone bill was $50,000.
Well, I didn't have that, but I had a couple of years that was $10,000.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
and
wow.
you forget that fake sense of you walking around on a house phone. It's like, my accountant lost his mind.
I know. It was expensive to talk back then. But
Now
you
you
do
have
it basically free.
unlimited talk and text. You needed some unlimited talk and text.
I
didn't you,
needed a
Tracy?
lot of it. I like to talk a lot.
Here's another one from T. Graham Brown. Here's Don't Go to Strangers.
She's in love with the boy. She's going to be cooking up some special victuals at Garth Brooks' new place down on Lower Broad.
That's right. I wouldn't be surprised if she's not planning the whole menu.
Planning the whole menu down there is what we hear. Yeah.
Okay. Well, T, can I ask you a question about before you got your record deal? After you moved to Nashville, you became like the go-to jingle singer for every ad agency in the world.
I did a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm looking at a list. It says Kentucky Fried Chicken, Hardee's, Ford, Dodge Truck, Sears, Coca-Cola, Almond Joy, Coors, Budweiser, Disneyland, McDonald's, Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew, 7-Up, Harrah's, and more.
Taco Bell.
Taco Bell, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mac. Just about every fast food, KFC.
How did you even get into that? Were you just singing demos?
They hired me. Somebody hired me, and it might have been Ron Chancey, who was a big jingle producer. And that's how we first met. And he called me up and said he had heard demos that I'd sang on. That's how he knew my voice. I'd never met him. and he called me up and said, "Do you want to come over here and do a McDonald's commercial? It's for the Super Bowl." And it was the first $1 million minute at the Super Bowl.
Wow.
And so that'll tell you how long ago it was. It was a long time ago, 30 years ago probably. Where are we now? 22? So no, it would have been like 35 or 36 years ago. And so I went in there and I did it, and it was easy, and I knocked it out quick, and then it aired on the Super Bowl, and then I started getting a bunch of calls to do all kinds of stuff.
I think it's you said something earlier about how they put your songs out to country radio and everybody liked it, but that you could have easily been in light rock or soul or R&B. It would have worked. I think it's because your singing style and your voice is kind of appeals to a lot of different demographics. So,
well,
you know,
maybe I'm just confused.
No, you
But
just
yeah,
got
man,
soul, man.
we did a lot of things. I mean, we did Dr. Pepper and Coke and 7-Up, Mountain Dew, every beer, every car and truck.
Wow.
Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. Did that for 7 years. And then,
but that was you?
yeah. And then, you know, that
I know that
59, 79, 99, run for the border, don't waste time, Taco Bell's done it again. I did that for 4 years.
That's
and
your fault then, because I ate a lot of those.
And I was actually in the TV commercials, which was pretty rare for an artist to do that back in those days.
I remember that. You were singing the jingle. It was
We
you
had
singing
fun,
the
man.
Oh, I bet.
jingle. Oh my gosh.
We had fun. We did them out in Hollywood, and we just had fun. And I could sign for any. They put me up at the Four Seasons, and I could sign for anything I wanted to. So you can imagine.
I feel like this is where we should talk about Pickle Jar, Tracy. We should talk
Let's
about
do
how
that.
if you're a young artist and you're trying to get your break and you can't get a job singing Taco Bell jingles, you can, while you're playing in the bars, get the Pickle Jar app, and people can tip you using Pickle Jar because, you know, nobody has cash anymore, right? So instead of tipping cash, people don't, I don't have any cash on me. Well, you can get the Pickle Jar app. You can scan the little QR code and tip that artist, and they get 100% of what you
Oh,
want to
now
tip them.
that's cool.
There you go.
So, Pickle Jar is the place to go for music and everything. If you want exclusive content from social media, for a music social media app, go and download at picklejar.com.
Alabama. Cotton. Did you ever tour with Alabama?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot.
They're still great guys, man. Randy's still, still singing great. He's still doing his thing. We got to do a few shows with him earlier this year. They're still doing a lot of people, man. I mean, they've had that sack of hits they had is pretty massive.
It's Alabama. I mean, good Lord.
Alabama. I mean, they got a whole state named after them.
They do.
What was Muscle Shoals like, man? I've never been there, but I mean, there was some massive records that were cut there.
Well, I've been down there recutting a bunch of those massive hits that were cut down there. Muscle Shoals is great. It's a weird place. It's just this little bitty place. I mean, it ain't big at all, and they just had so many hits. I mean, unbelievable. People that are listening, go and look up the Muscle Shoals documentary.
I've seen it.
And you can see how from this little bitty place, they cut so many hits down there, man. And you know what? The house band, they were all white, and they cut soul hits. You know, all the artists were black, but the band backing them up were all white.
And a lot of British artists that have come over and cut there and used that band too.
Yeah, and I used them on this last project I've been working on. And, I mean, the Stones cut down there. Bob Seger cut a bunch of hits, cut old-time rock and roll down there.
I think U2 even came and cut some stuff down there a few years ago.
The list is unbelievable of people that have come down there and of the hits. I urge anybody listening to Google Muscle Shoals and read up on it or watch that video. It's amazing. It's amazing. A little bitty town like that. It's just a wonderful story.
What do you think about the state of country music and the young artists? What do you think?
You know, man, this might sound stupid, but I don't listen to it much. You know, I don't listen to music as much as I used to. I have a show on Sirius XM radio, which is on Prime Country Station, which specializes in from 1980 to 2000. So that's mine and your era.
Yep.
I about quit listening after that. as goofy as that. So I hope people don't take that the wrong way. And but I like, if I'm listening to old stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I'm old. You know, I heard Vince Gill was on Don Imus one morning, and I remember it was early, like 5 a.m, and Don Imus asked him the same question. And Vince said, well, I ain't really supposed to like anything like. He said, I'm from a different era, you know, and these young kids, more power to them for whatever they're doing. And the way I look at it, it's hard to pull off, you know. It's a hard thing to pull off, to have hits, to tour, and all that. So as far as them having my respect for being able to pull it off, they got my respect for that. It's just that I couldn't tell you who's doing what. So I have no honest opinion about it because I just don't know. I just don't know what's going on. I'm so far out of the loop. You know, I'm stuck in time, back in time, I guess. I don't know.
That's not a bad thing, though, man. It's okay to be that.
I don't know. I just don't want people to think that I'm sour grapes, you know. I don't want them to think, oh, that old guy, he's just mad because he ain't out there having hits now. Well, that couldn't be farther from the truth, you know.
So you listen to podcasts?
I listen to a little bit of everything. I listen to classic rock. I'll listen to Tom Petty's channel. I'll listen to just old Led Zeppelin. I love Boston. I love just old school rock and roll.
I understand.
I listen to all kinds of stuff, but I don't listen to really what's going on today. I just haven't given it a chance, I guess.
Well, you don't have to. It is what it is, man. We're going to go back to the 80s. I remember, I love this song because there was a little waitress at the cafe back home when I was growing up. Her name was Darlene. I thought she was awful pretty, too. And I remember this. I correlate this song to that time period in my life. Darlene. Where'd Darlene come from?
Well, somebody played me Darlene. And I thought, man, I never had wanted to do a name song, you know, some girl's name. But I thought, man, maybe this one might be something. So Ron Chancey was producing me at this time. We had
the same guy who got you to sing all those
Jingle.
commercials. Yeah.
So that was my third album, and I said, Chancey, you want to work together on a record? He said, yeah, man. So we just decided to make a record together. And it was the only one we ever made together. And it wasn't because we were mad at each other. It was just something we did. And I remember taking that Darlene, this was in the days of the cassette, and I had that cassette in my back pocket. I walked into Chancey's office, and I said, man, I think I got one. And I pulled it out, and I laid it on the desk. And he said, you know, I think I got one, too. And he opened his briefcase and put out a cassette and laid it on the desk. It was the same song.
The same song. That's two guys that figured out.
So we cut it, and it was a number one. It was a smash.
Big old record.
Yeah.
Here's T. Graham Brown and Darlene. Meet in the Middle, Diamond Rio. I always liked that band, man. They had their own sound, too. Very unique sounding band. Good vocals. Good bunch of guys.
They just had a bad name.
Should have been Rio Diamond.
Yeah,
right?
they had it backwards. It
Just
should
had
have
it
been Rio Diamond. R-E-O. Now.
That's right.
What's the favorite venue you've ever played at, man? All the places you've been around.
Oh, man. You know, I played at I toured with Kenny Rogers when he was huge. He was about the biggest thing in the world. And we played every major arena in North America. We never did go overseas, but all in North America we played.
Did you do Dolly's part?
Yeah, I did Dolly's part. But you know, my favorite, the coolest one was we played at Wolf Trap.
Where's that?
It's in Virginia. It's a real famous venue. It's out, kind of outdoors. It seems like it was a shed kind of that had open sides on it, you know.
Yeah.
But it's a real famous place, and I remember playing it with the Judds, and it was real hot that day. But it's really a prestigious place, and it's made out of wood. If I remember right now, somebody might call in and say, "Oh, that liar," but it seems like it was made out of wood, and it was
I'm
just
looking at pictures of it. Looks like it is.
Is it still there?
yeah,
Wow.
it's still there. And let me see, man, what does that look like?
A big wooden, like indoor and outdoor mix amphitheater.
Yeah, that's it. That's it, man. See there,
I've never
I do
even heard of that.
remember. And it was hot that day, but it was packed, and it was just a wonderful crowd. Wolf Trap is just a storied place, man. You need to
have to
play
check it
there
out.
sometime. And it's kind of like, it's cool, like Madison Square Gardens is cool. You know, you hear these names that you grow up with, and Wolf Trap is one that I always heard of and wanted to play, and we did. It was great.
It's amazing to me, you know, back in the 90s, you know, you had a handful of big festivals. You had some things up in Wisconsin, you know, where there'd be, you know, Jamboree in the Hills, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And now they're everywhere. I mean, there's so many massive festivals bringing in, you know, 60, 70,000 people. It's amazing how big festivals are these days. And people come out in droves. Since the pandemic has been over with, I mean, I'm sure y'all been seeing the same thing. People are coming out in droves.
They just tired
everywhere.
of being at home, man.
Oh, I'm just tired of everything.
And you know what? This is kind of a phenomenon that's gradually happening to me, is these young kids that have gone back to where they like the 80s and 90s.
I know.
You know,
All of them.
And so I'm seeing faces that I haven't seen in a long time, you know.
Or seeing kids sing your stuff that are 19, 20 years old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's just a weird thing. It's nice, though.
It's very nice. I enjoy it. I enjoy being out there and seeing all these young kids. It gives me hope for where country music is going, and that's with a whole new generation. And the internet gives them the ability to find, if they hear one thing they like, they're going to look up your entire body of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole, as Fred Sanford said, it's a whole nother different ball game these days, the way it works.
If you could only see him now, right?
There
If
you
you
go.
could only see him now. You know, I had a song kind of close to that title.
Let's see if we can find that, Patrick. Let's do that. I'm Tracy Lawrence. We are Honky Tonkin with T. Graham Brown in the studio. You know, you got a new project coming out. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, like everybody, I got a new project coming out. But I went down to Muscle Shoals as a vanity project, really. I just wanted to go down there and recut a bunch of old 60s soul hits and that were cut in Muscle Shoals and that were cut in Memphis. We're calling it From Memphis to Muscle Shoals, and we cut 15 sides, and they're all big soul hits from the 60s. It's really cool. And I got some good duet partners. Tanya's on it. I know y'all fixing to play this duet that Tanya and I had hit on. So Tanya's on it, Sammy Hagar, Dwight Yoakam, Winona, Betty Levette, this great singer living up in New York. She's from Detroit. She was one of Aretha Franklin's contemporaries. Sam Moore from Sam and Dave's on it. Little Anthony from Little Anthony and Imperials is on it. And you'll like this. I did a duet on Sitting on the Dock of the Bay with Randy Houser.
No kidding.
And singing his face off.
Boy, he does, don't he?
Yeah,
I love him.
man. So it's a real cool record, and we're going to get it out sometime here in the next few months. And
So is all the production wrapped up? You done recording? You're
Everything's-
just waiting on mixing everything down?
everything's done, basically. I mean, it's mixed and everything.
What'd you wear on the what'd you do in the
Oh,
photo
and
shoot?
Winona, did I say Winona?
You
She's
did,
on
you
the
did.
What'd
you wear in the photo shoot? What kind of clothes did you put on the album cover?
Oh, I don't know, man. We're still debating on that album cover. Oh, I'm gonna look sharp though. I'm gonna look sharp as a razor blade, man.
I hear you, brother. That's awesome. So you got a book coming out. Tell me about the book.
Oh, well, you know, this company wanted to know if I would write an autobiography. I could not, for the life of me, figure who would want to even read anything like that. But Sheila, if it weren't for Sheila, this book wouldn't be getting written, because she's reminded me of things that I had long forgotten, you know. So there's some good stuff in there. It's turning out good, and it's supposed to be out by Christmas.
Got a timeline? Okay, so by Christmas, working title on it yet?
I'm going to let you guess.
T. Graham Brown.
No, but yeah, it'll say T. Graham Brown, but what's the title going to be?
Oh, I have no idea.
I tell it like
Tell
it
it
used
like
to
it
be.
used to be, of course. Full circle. There you go.
That's awesome, man.
All right. Do you remember anything about how this song came about?
I know exactly how it came about. Radney Foster and Bill Lloyd had this group called Foster and Lloyd.
Remember that one well.
They put out this album, their debut album, and I listened to that thing a million times. Well, it had a hidden track on it called Don't Go Out With Him. And I listened to that song. I mean, I knew it backwards and forwards. Okay, so I fast forward a couple of years, and I'm sitting at home, and Jerry Crutchfield, Tanya's producer, called me and said, do you want to sing a duet with Tanya? And we were both on Capitol Records together, and we were both great friends already. And I said, heck, are you kidding me? So I had a Harley at that time, and I jumped on it and rode down to the Music Mill, Alabama studio at the time. Yep. And we went in there, and Jerry Crutchfield hands me this tape and said, go upstairs and learn this song. I looked at it, and it was Don't Go Out. And I said, man, I know this song.
Oh, wow.
And we jumped in the booth together, and we cut that song like in 10 minutes. It didn't take us any time to cut that vocal, man, because I knew it and she knew it. And dang, they put it out, and we had a smash on it.
Big old record. Here's Tanya Tucker, T. Graham Brown, Don't Go Out. I love Tanya, man.
I do too.
She's something special. Still sings great too, even after all these years, man. I love her. Okay, so kind of here at the end of the show, anything else going on? Give me all your socials, all that stuff.
We got all that social stuff, Facebook, Twitter and all that. We even rocking with the kids on TikTok, man. But
there you go.
But I wanted to plug this. The Kentucky floods devastated 3 counties in Kentucky. So we came up with this idea to sell T-shirts with "Come Hell or High Water" printed on it, and Kentucky Strong, and an outline of the state of Kentucky, and the shirt is in Kentucky blue. So anyway, we're selling them for $25 a piece on tgrahambrown.com. So please come and get you one and donate some money. We've sold bukus and bukus of them, and Sheila and them been folding shirts and putting them in mailers and taking them to the post office. So it's a homegrown effort, and we're praying for them. And they're still devastated. I know the floods happened like 6 weeks ago, but it's going to be years and years and years before these folks are able to come back.
Man, thank you so much for being here today. I treasure your friendship.
Oh, thanks. I love you too, man.
I always love sitting down and visiting with you and getting caught up, man. You're just you're consistent. You're always there, brother.
Well, I'm just a goofball.
Well, I'm glad, we've all grown and changed over the years, and I'm glad of the man you are now. God bless
thank
you,
you,
friend.
man. Hey, and you ain't doing so bad yourself.
I'm hanging in there, brother. Got a good woman at home. That makes all the difference.
That does make all the difference.
Y'all know the deal between now and this time next week. Y'all keep her between the ditches.
Thank you.
Yeah, they'll go honky tonkin', honky